because there's really kind of like a dirge of composers speaking about composing. I think that the art world is way ahead of the music world when it comes to explaining process. And so I have read quite a bit, certainly as a composer, on writing and how you know that you are being consistent in honoring your original idea when you start to compose a piece, compose a song, and what are those kind of like those touch points, to keep you on track. So you might start with something and then you end up with something completely different, and you diluted the idea that inspired you to write in the first place.
Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I have to say, I'm very excited, very honored to welcome Mr. Todd Cochran here. Now, he plays piano, he plays keyboards, he's a composer, he plays electronic music. And I mean, this guy's album is incredible. I enjoyed every bit of it, and we're going to get to know him and talk about the album. So let's kick this off right. Mr. Cochran, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, one thing I can say, Kyle, is that I enjoy meeting new people, and certainly the people that I meet through the way that music connects people makes it even more special, more interesting, because we have that wonderful starting point. And so it's great to be here with you and to have a conversation.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, I have to say, having a lot of musicians in the family, I sometimes pay attention to things in music that maybe most people don't.
Of course.
And I'm not an expert by any means, but I do listen to music differently than what I did as a kid.
Of course.
And, I noticed the influences in your newest work, and I mean, there was like Oriental influence there. I noticed there was the Indian influence with sitar, and you had classical music, you had jazz music. There was, I dare say, prog music in there. It just it came together so well. And some of it, and I hope this doesn't sound offensive, but it sounded like you were composing music for a blockbuster movie or something.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, that's fine. That means that it's communicating. And so that's not a bad association at all. I think that I think that music has the power to cut through, meaning that it can give voice to things that may be unsayable in other ways. And so I always think about, okay, so music has the power to cut through, and we're giving voice, but what does it mean?
Right.
And so this album really means that I'm at a point where I'm completely open to expressing the influences that have formed me, things that I have pursued to the place of understanding and playing authentically. And then with that, I have recognized and see the intersecting lines of that. And I feel to a greater degree, that's how our society is. That's how world culture is in an idealistic context. I think that it's not easy for everyone to see ourselves joined in this very, very deep way. but the truth is we are.
Music has a way of breaking barriers and bringing people together.
Yes.
You know,
Right.
I've talked to people about this before. I mean, you look at the 50s when there would be venues with a rope right down the middle where you had white people on one side, people of color on the other side.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden they would just take the rope down, everybody's dancing together.
That's right, because it didn't make any sense.
Right. Why? I mean, music's
Right.
supposed to be enjoyed by everyone.
And people are people, and that's really something particularly like where we are. Like this is holiday weekend. We're celebrating Juneteenth for, I guess it's the second or third year. And we just think about that, and that race continues to haunt us in this moment. I've always seen, again, music expresses those things that we know on a very, very deep level, and it's just as what you said. I mean, what is the point? We understand that race is a construct. It's really not a natural thing. That's just something that occurred. I mean, it's just part of the whole development of commerce and industry and these societal hierarchical things that affects an ability to do business in a certain way. But I think all of us in the deepest sense understand that that's unnatural. People who are different have always been attracted to each other. People have always been curious about what other cultures do, what other societies do, what their beliefs, practices, how they celebrate, how they experience each other. And something that I know we talked actually before we went live here, just family structure and what that means. And so I tend to think of us, as I express it through the music, as a community. And so that community is not a community of where there are divisions within it, because authentic community, everything is present within that. Everyone is there. There's a balance, that occurs within it, the balance of perspectives. Because at the end of the day, I think we're all looking, for that place where we can, feel free about experiencing like who we are, and certainly in the things that we do, whether we're an artist or whether we are into the other very important professions, to be able to express ourselves openly in that. We're involved in the healing arts. If you in the medical field, if you are, that's something I feel really, really, really strongly about. And surely a lot of it probably comes from just my orientation to the world, having been born and raised in San Francisco.
There's bands like the Beatles, the Who, the Rolling Stones, go on and on, and they stayed relevant, they stayed successful for years and years and years. And
Right.
I think the reason why is because they didn't stay in a bubble.
That's right.
They explored music. I mean, sometimes it was heavy, sometimes it was soft, sometimes it would be classical, sometimes it would be jazzy. You got such a variety, and I noticed that in your album. You weren't in a bubble on all those songs. You got a little bit of everything. So
Yes, yeah, it is, and that is, I think that is our pathway to growth and part of our natural evolution is to be curious about people whose experiences are different than ours, and it helps us to understand ourselves by incorporating those things. I mean, I could think, you mentioned the Beatles and things that how vast the influences were, even to Stockhausen and his very, very experimental ideas, became a part of, I forget which album it was. I think it was the White Album that he was a part of, and actually he's on the cover of one of the albums. So I think I'm wrong. So maybe my Beatles history is a bit off, but I do feel very, very strongly about the representation of the lives that we all live in one way or another, which is that of wanting to be, certainly we have the need to be seen, to be heard, to be felt, and that really brings it all together. It really is.
And you played with Automatic Man.
Yes.
You played with a lot of different great artists, but you get out and you do your own thing, so you're not tied down to that specific sound that the band wants. But yet you brought some of their influence with you in the music, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Automatic Man will always be a part of my DNA. The band came together at a time where I was really in a very much like an accelerated growth cycle, because all of my formal training is in classical music, and then I was exposed to jazz, and I just had to learn that language. And so I did it by taking what I had learned from the theory in classical music, and what I did was I listened to records and I wrote down what I heard, and that's how I learned the music. And then I was very fortunate to have people who mentored me and helped me to understand this language. So I really learned jazz in the traditional way. I didn't come from people learn it now in music schools in that. And similarly, I came into the world of rock and folk and R&B in the same way, in that traditional way. And with Automatic Man, I brought together those experiences with the addition of an early high point of my involvement with electronic music, synthesizers, and electronically created sounds. And so I did that to create a dimension for the music, not just the background, but it actually had lead roles in the music, in terms of melodies and things that you could sing along with, that were memorable, signature sounds. And it was really, really just completely engrossing to me, because I was able to do things certainly like to orchestrate, and also like set a sound design, give a sound to a piece of music. And so that was very, very important to me, and integrating that with the guitars and and the bass and the drums. And it was with Michael Shreve on drums, who was just the principal founding member of the band. He and I came together with Pat Thrall on guitar, and Donnie Harvey on bass, and we came into it, and we just fused a language where we could speak with each other
Mm-hmm.
and try all the ideas and play what was in the atmosphere, play what we'd seen on the way to rehearsal, play what was going on in our lives. And so we developed a musical shorthand, and that's really what brought that experience up to the level that it was. And you know, and to have the album that we did, and for it to be impactful, really, it means a lot. It means a lot.
Whenever you're writing your music, and do you like think of a musician sometimes and maybe write more geared towards their strengths, or is it all just you?
I'm always in the listening, and I think it's very, very important to hear, if I'm working with another artist, to hear what it is that they want to say,
Mm-hmm.
and then to embrace that. I am definitely not interested in putting my sound and signature on everything that I do. Certainly, there's an approach that maybe people will reference as, you know, coming from me and my orientation to music, but it's always about serving the music first. And
Mm-hmm.
also that means I really don't have a preference about whether the music is either, whether it's acoustic or whether it's electronic. It's the melodies first, it's the song, it's the verbiage, it's what's being said, and then that will dictate the instrumentation. But it's always the music, the sound, it has to serve the message that's coming through the song.
We were talking about our families before we got started, and you have a 22-year-old.
Yes.
One of the benefits of having kids is you kind of keep a connection to what's going on. I know we talked a little bit about that, like
Yes.
music wise, because I'd still be stuck in the 70s and 80s if it wasn't for my kids. But
Yes.
did some of that influence some of this music, because it seemed like there was a like electronic dance going on in
Uh-huh.
one of the
Mm-hmm.
songs.
Yeah. Well, I think this is where I'm really coming from, because of my orientation in classical music and jazz, and then the things that I have done in the progressive rock area.
Mm-hmm.
These are very, very strong places for me. I see that intersectionality. And so I think of it in terms of, I really think of this as like taking music and respecting it and embracing it as fine art. It's fine art. And so that's where my devotion is. That's the energy I give to it, to really to raise it to that level, whatever that may be, because we know that that's a you know, that's a dance of relativism there. But so it's at that place, but I see it through a pop culture sensibility. That pop culture sensibility is the relatable aspect, you know, so there's no of these there's no elitism in it. There's nothing non-inclusive about it. It's really like an invitation to join in a conversation that can be opened by the music.
I also notice like a lot of the artists that I talk to, they
Mm-hmm.
they have their way of making the music. They have their sound.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you know how easy it would be to jump into the pop music that's going on nowadays. Surely there's that temptation, but yet you stick to you without,
Yes.
can I say, selling out. I
Right.
mean, you know, I'm a huge Kiss fan, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you never thought you'd ever hear them disco song, but they did.
Uh-huh.
I think it kind
Uh-huh.
of ticked some of the fans off, but
Uh-huh.
uh, I mean, without that temptation, I mean, how do you keep from being tempted to just jump in and make a pop song and just to make money?
Well, I think you're actually, that's just one of the aspects of um, industry. I think it's really on a fundamental level, I think that is just a reflexive response to the whole uh, process of commodifying something that is artistic. And so, what type of support are you going to engender uh, through this commodification process? That's basically it. And so we have, there are a group of people who make music because they're compelled to do it, and it's something that comes from a very, very deep place within them. There are others who love music equally as well, but they see it as a ticket to make money. You
Right.
see, so that's the objective. Uh, is it about saying something that relates to the um, the formation of a indestructible happiness that comes from being able to relate to people and from a place of empathy, and empathy within our society, empathy within our dealings, uh, empathy within our negotiations between, groups of people, governments, and because we see that when that fails, um, it becomes the situation becomes problematic. There's no fix, there's no solution. So I think if you're in the mind of using your ability to affect solution and open people up to possibilities, um, your um, your objectives change. And I think if you're natural about that, if you're really truthful about it, it will reach your natural audience. There is a natural audience for our thoughts. I don't think we're so highly individualistic that we think in just a singular way and we're the only person. No, we are there is a larger collective out there that we represent. I don't care how far the distance is that we are from each other physically. There is that collective. So I think if we speak on that, which I would have to say like is the truth, it will be recognized by those. And then you know, people observe that. People are drawn to that.
Because and I don't mean to bring me into the conversation here, but I had a talk with a buddy of mine yesterday, and it's so easy to sell out per se, like with what I'm doing.
Mm.
I have another buddy who's a comedian, and
Okay.
it was kind of a joke for him when he first started doing his little podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And if you talk about, trashy things and whatever's controversial, man, you're going to get the subscribers and the views and all that. I mean, it's going to pile up. And
Mm.
he makes a lot of this stuff off the top of his head,
Yeah.
just to
Mm-hmm.
be funny, but it's also part of the algorithm of YouTube
Mm-hmm.
or some of these other platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he makes a lot of money doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I am nowhere near the numbers he has,
Mm-hmm.
but I have an objective here. I'm trying to bring a little positivity into the world and
Absolutely.
trying to inspire and motivate people.
Mhm.
and I could easily sell out and just start doing all that controversial stuff and
Of course.
just to make the money. But
Right.
to me, that's not being true to me. I can't do that. I'm not that kind of person.
Mhm.
You know, to him, I mean, he's a comedian, so that's
Mhm.
part of his world.
Mhm.
It's not part of mine.
Mhm.
And
Well, what I think is that you can. There are levels of social commentary that can be initiated on a level of shock just because of the boldness of what is being said.
mhm,
Uh, but I think that what you are saying, you're talking about, you have a core value system that will not allow you to just go to that place
right,
um, to make um, more money.
right,
Um, I think that those things happen. I think when we, see people, particularly people, talk about being true to themselves, and then, of course, they're competitive with themselves and pushing themselves to that place once they've instinctively connected with that motivational center that gives them that connection with the emotional drive that what's they say it inspires and motivates your psyche in a way so that you can push and go deeper into this thing about that you want to communicate and what you want to share and so we see oftentimes people who go to that place and avoid just that direct and maybe more commercial or obviously accessible place. They get to a place, they arrive at a place that's beyond their dreams. And there is a beyond the dream place because part of the artist's skill is that skill that allows that interior human feeling to move outward into the world. And when that occurs, you're actually moving energy, and that thing that you put there, it becomes relatable in an objective and subjective context. You see, so it's stimulating people. It shocks them. They're surprised. They might be offended. But what lingers is they're thinking about things. You see, particularly if you are delivering your message in a constructive way, and that's what I think. I think that while like music can't stop the ugly things, the horrors that are occurring in the world, but it can lead us, to the practice of communicating better and with humanists to the point that it stimulates a constructive dialogue. And I think that's where the healing, that's where the betterment um, occurs. And I know that was probably like a roundabout journey to get to that point. But I say it's cool for them, but it may not be cool, you know.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
I mean, like, I'm a huge fan of Frank
Uh,
Zappa. He
uh,
did he didn't care about getting into the top 40. He just cared about making his music.
yeah.
And he had the fan base. I mean,
Mhm,
the guy definitely didn't hurt for money,
mhm,
but he didn't have that top 10 hit, the
right.
the pop stuff that was going on. He could have easily done it. I mean, he proved it. He wrote a song for his daughter and it became a top 40 hit with
Right.
Valley Girl. And
That's true. So what we can say on that is, Kyle, is that we just have to accept and know, like, see, we're not all wired the same.
right.
That's really what it's about. Um, Everyone might not perceive things with the same amount of depth that you do, and then that's connected to your value systems, how you grew up, your orientation to the world and things that you have been working on, to become a better person, which we do daily. You see? So, and so everybody is on a different track of that growth cycle. And so I'm not going to even go so far as to call it, say, maturity. I'm not going to say the M word, maturity. I'm just saying we're growing. I mean, I think that, yeah, I think so. And those things that we do that we recognize can actually make a difference, they come in waves. It's just a wave of it, and so I feel a part of a wave at this point with From the Vault, Notes for the Future. These are thoughts and concepts that I have held close to me for some time that I am releasing into the world freely, because this is where I am, the connectivity and those things. And so, like, for some ideas, if we just think about giving ideas a persona, you can say that for an idea to being isolated could be a very positive experience for the idea, because if it sits there and as it marinates it, and it gains strength, and it can take on another sense of importance, where that you have to express it. And that's really where I am. It's got the emotional imprints, there's the memory, there's the remembering, and then there's the formation, of this better relating in this context of this very, very needy world that we are existing.
Every time of day has sounds everywhere. Street sounds, sounds of nature, sounds of every kind. Sunsets are magnificent. They signal a change in the light of day and a time to reflect. However, dawn to me is more about hope and unfolding and affirmation. There's such optimism and awe to a sunrise, and everyone experiences it differently. There can be a circle of people standing together, and each one receives a different message from those first rays of light in the morning. The sky seems to roll and turn, and sometimes there's the sight of the moon in the early daylight. Dawn can be a mysterious beginning after the night. And then we have daydreams instead of the kind we experience while sleeping.
What do you like to do besides play music?
Okay, I'll tell you one of the things that I really enjoy and have, like, say, for the majority of my life, I enjoy reading. I've always been a big reader, and I get so much from that, the literary orientation to the world. I just began, since I've been a reader, how words can transport you from one place to another. It can put you inside certain feelings on an experiential level that maybe you wouldn't get to if it was spoken to you, because you're actually speaking those words inside of your own mind And so it is immediately interacting with your, emotional memory. And that's very, very exciting, and then you learn different names, you learn different foods, you learn different cultural traditions, and then you see how it becomes, it's circular, like the track that one of the tracks on the album, The Spinning Circle. I'm talking about that connectivity, and we are in motion. We're in motion until we say that we aren't in motion. And so what are we doing with that? And so for me, it's about bringing ideas to the surface and expressing them in the most direct way. I read a lot of nonfiction. I'm sort of a history buff. Certainly, I read a lot about the art experience. I've read quite a bit about writers and writing, because there's really kind of like a dirge of composers speaking about composing. I think that the art world is way ahead of the music world when it comes to explaining process. And so I have read quite a bit, certainly as a composer, on writing and how that you are being consistent in honoring your original idea when you start to compose a piece, compose a song, and what are those kind of like those touch points, to keep you on track. So you might start with something and then you end up with something completely different, and you diluted the idea that inspired you to write in the first place. So that's something I'm very interested in. I read a lot of biographies. And I would say, and I am avoiding saying what's my favorite book, but I am talking about major and minor influences. And with that, I would say, like, what sort of things move us through our phases of personal growth cycles. And when we think about that, I look about that in relationship to the larger society's rate of evolution. See, it's like your growth cycle might be different than what like the social scientists would say. What I'm interested in and what I'm always trying to express through my work as a composer, as a performer, recording artist, live performance is where it all comes together for me. And so I'm thinking about what are some of the barriers that music can address? The things that are unsayable. And so when we do that, what do? We have to tune into the signposts. We tune into the signposts by just being aware. How are other people who may be experiencing life in a more dramatic and possibly even more devastating way, what is their response to that experience? And so I'm thinking about, okay, so again, what are some of the barriers that music can express? So to that, I would look at the piece on the album that I wrote, which is Hymn for the Hidden People. That's a wide, it's casting a wide net there, because people are hidden in different ways. And so we're not talking about just the disenfranchised. Of course, we're speaking about the homeless, the people who are impoverished psychologically because of whatever issues they may have had in their lives early on that they have not been able to deal with. And I think that again, music has the power to cut through those things and allow people to release those emotional things that may be like very, very deeply embedded in their bodies, in their minds, that's entrapped there. And so I think about that in a very, very deep way. And so we talk about the hidden people. There are people who could be in front of you, and you might think that you understand that person, but what's really going on inside has been very cleverly hidden. There's always been a percentage of our society who need the assistance of others. We read all of that. We read it in the spiritual text. We read it, in the Greek text. We read it in, what we understand of the Nubian culture in Africa. There's always been that percentage of the population that needed the assistance, that could only exist with there being a dimension of empathy. And so we have to go more deeply into ourselves to awaken that compassionate portion of ourselves. And by that way, we are dealing with the mental health of our society as a whole, because we know what happens, like certain, repressed feelings and things like that. It leads to what we call minor criminality, personalities that are, insensitive, a meanness, or just that. I think even what's worse than that is indifference. You see, indifference is really, really that's something, And where does indifference live? Indifference lives in silence. I've had the great experience of working. I worked with Maya Angelou. I recorded 3 things with her, and we know, that that was really at the core of her initial writing, of I know why the cage bird sings, because her experience, she was silent. She didn't talk for 3 or 4 years. And the art and the poetics and being inspired by someone who was compassionate, it said, well, why don't you try poetry? Why don't you try to, express this, that, and the other? And look at that. That was released, and she just brought gifts to the planet from it. And so I think that we all come here, man, with things to give to the planet. And that's what I see everywhere. Like, there are beloved people who really, really are concerned about the condition of our world. I can message that through the music, with the excitement of rhythms and colors and musical surprises, and dealing with that intersectionality, dealing with creating a quilt where all sorts of people see themselves in it, and we look around and say, wow, like this is, we're here, in this together. And I think that's, there's my altruism.
Well, we're all human beings. We all bleed the same.
That's right.
We have to help one another and not find ways to separate us.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. And that's what it is. So it's about if anything, within the music that I write, I think, which is a consistent theme of everything that I've done since the beginning of my career, is this. It's that unifying impulse.
Yeah.
And I believe in the differences. Man, I don't want you to disappear. And because I have to say, like, I don't believe in this whole melting pot concept. I believe in, and I've said this before, I believe in the salad bowl. There's lettuce in there, love lettuce. There are tomatoes, there's cucumber, there's bell pepper, there's bean sprouts, there's arugula, there's purple cabbage, and those elements work together. But this whole melting down, man, why would you want to melt down who you are, Kyle? I don't want to melt down who I am. I want to come into a space, man, where everybody is representing, and that's cool. That's what enlivens it. That's where we recognize the creative impulse. The creativity happens with that collision of experiences, man, and that thing that engenders a sense of awareness and a knowledge of how important the individual is to the progress and the continuation of the human spirit.
I've always said that if everybody was the same, this world would be boring.
Absolutely.
That's why my marriage, I think, works so well. We do have a lot in common. Yes, we do. But my wife brought so much into my life that I've never experienced before. And it's influenced me in so many ways. Now,
absolutely.
Do I enjoy all the things she enjoys? Of course not. And vice versa. Right. But I can at least say, hey, I've got to experience this, and
yeah, it's broadening the horizons.
Exactly.
And that's beautiful. You broaden the horizons, and that creates the peace. You see, peace. It creates the peace inside of you because you have a wider understanding, and it creates peace again in our very needy world.
Has there been any hurdles in your life that you've had to overcome, whether it's your life in general or music? I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah, I think that the hurdles that I've had to overcome, I think were just a part of those in my growth cycle. I think that's it. Just broadening my outlook on the world, a sense of time. I think that I kind of get lost in the whole area of solitude. But solitude is not loneliness. But there is a certain dimension of solitude that occurs, certainly with just the whole practice of creating music, creating art, composing, preparing to perform, and just learning in general. So I think if anything, it's just been developing a dimension of relationship, which I actually enjoy. And I would hope that people don't see like, wow, but that's something that he really had to work on. I hope that I'm in a relatable state. Said like his ideas are great, but he needs to work on the delivery.
Do you have a website?
Yes, I do.
I will put that in the description. But what is the website?
My website is toddcochran.com, and I have a Wikipedia page, and
right.
Yes.
What about social media?
Social, I'm on Facebook, Todd Cochran Music, and which is connected, of course, to Instagram. I don't tweet that much. I may start more. It's an interesting format. It's shifting, but I think it's wonderful. I think it could create a great dialogue.
The album, it hasn't come out yet?
No, but it is available. You can access it. The physical copies have not been released yet, but it is available on Spotify and Apple Music.
Okay. And I will put those links up as well.
Yes.
And
great.
And when did you say that the physical copies come out?
They will be out later this month.
Later this month. Wow.
Yes, which is the month of June.
Yeah.
Yes. Hmm.
Well, Mr. Cochran, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on the show, and I look forward to your future projects. Please come back on as soon as you have something else come out.
I certainly will. It's been a pleasure talking
Thank
to
you.
you. Yes, and all the
Thank
best
you.
to you. Yeah, this is really, really, really great. It's about connectivity.
That is right. That is right. And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button. From our regulars, you guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.